Well, welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat middle of the night edition. Yes, I'm having one of those nights. It's about 3 in the morning. I still haven't fallen asleep and just kind of going through some things. And I thought, you know what? This is a great time to just get up and make a video. Why not? Because I've got some things I want to share with you. So I was thinking that what I'm about to share with you about myself, I've probably never told you, but I think I have. I think it was in another video a long time ago, but it's not something that I talk about very much. Well, quite honestly, I forget about it. I don't even think about it that often unless something triggers a memory, but yet it used to be a huge part of who I was. And I think in some ways, at that time, it kind of defined who I was with some people. Yeah, they were very focused on this little habit I had. And they thought about it and talked about it and tried to fix me. And yet nobody could. And it wasn't until I came to a point where I said, okay, enough is enough, and I kicked the habit myself. So, what was this great mystery? Well, I, as a small child, up till around about the age of 9, I was a thumb sucker. I know, not proud of it. It's not, the highlight of my childhood. I think that because I had a lot of childhood trauma and I didn't really have anybody to confide in or to talk to about it, that I think that that's kind of how I comforted myself, how I soothed myself. And so I do think that was probably why I had this problem, sucking my thumb. And that's why I think I did share it in another video, all the different things my mom did to try to stop me from sucking my thumb. She sewed a mitten on my nightgown. I just tore the mitten off. She put bitter tasting stuff on my thumb. I just kept sucking until the bitter stuff came off and went away. She put hot sauce on my thumb. I just started liking hot, spicy food. I mean, everything she tried, nothing worked. And then when I was like 9, I remember thinking, someday I'm going to grow up and I'm going to get married, and my husband might think that's kind of weird, me sucking my thumb. So I probably need to stop this. And I used to, I had really, really long hair. It went down below my waist. And I used to have to, my mom would smooth my hair out underneath me and I would lay down. And so if I got up too quick, it would jerk my head. And so I definitely wanted my hair behind me. Now, see, I've learned since, you wad it up and put it up over the top of your head so you're not laying on it. But at that time, it was, the 60s and everybody wanted smooth, sleek hair. My mom sometimes, because I had some natural curl in my hair, sometimes she would iron my hair. She'd put it between some bed sheets and iron it to try and give me that really straight hair. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the thumb sucking, other than if I slept on my hair, then it would wake me up if I did any sudden movements. And then I would take, because it was my right thumb was my buddy, and I'd tuck it behind my back. And so anytime that I would go to pull my thumb out in my sleep, like I was going to suck on it, it would wake me up. And I had to consciously not do this. Okay, so why am I telling you this story? And what made me think of this was in my time with the Lord. I'm reading in the book of Ezekiel, and the other day I read in chapter 13, in the middle of verse 12, I read these words. It says, if someone who is righteous disobeys, that person is that person's former righteousness will count for nothing. Having problems reading in the middle of the night. Let's try this again. If someone who is righteous disobeys, that person's former righteousness will count for nothing. And if someone who is wicked repents, that person or that person's former wickedness will not bring condemnation. Now, that scripture really stuck out to me because one of the things that I see that we do is we can hold ourselves hostage to our past. We can hold other people hostage to their past. We can hold them hostage to what they did that hurt us. We can hold ourselves hostage for what we did that hurt somebody else. And it's stuff in the past. Now, if whatever that wrong was, if we've repented of it, it's not held against us anymore. That's what God was telling Ezekiel to tell the children of Israel. Okay, so they weren't defined by what they did wrong in the past, but they were defined by the moment, which meant even if they'd been a really good person in the past, if in the present they were living a wicked, sinful life, then all the good they'd done, all the righteousness they'd had in them, it didn't count for them at all anymore. So I was thinking about this because what if, everybody knew I sucked my thumb back in those days. Everybody was trying to give my mom ideas of how to get me to stop, but she was never able to do it. And no matter my grandmother or women in the church, any ideas they came up with, anything they tried, nothing worked. It wasn't until I saw this flaw in me and said, yeah, not doing this anymore, that I was able to kick it. And it didn't just happen overnight. Trust me, it was a long, hard battle. And I put myself through stuff so that I would hold myself accountable, thus the hair behind my back and the thumb behind my back, so that when I tried to pull that out, it would jerk my head because I would lift my head and my hair would hold it back, and the thumb pulling out from behind my back, all the activity would wake me up. And then I would consciously choose not to suck that thumb, even though I wanted to so bad. It was my best friend. It comforted me. I used to have so many nightmares as a child. And that thumb, that was my security blanket. So it was a long, hard battle. Now, as an adult, looking back to it, this childhood addiction, it seems ridiculous. But what if I had continued to always be defined, even now, well into my 60s, pushing up against my 70s, and I would be defined as Angie, the thumb sucker, even though I haven't sucked my thumb in, almost 60 years. So why would I be defined as that? That's not who I am. Like I said, I don't even think about it. I forget about it unless something triggers the memory. So, we can look at that thumb sucking. That's ridiculous. Maybe you were a bedwetter. Do you want, as an adult, to be known as, Cleo the bedwetter? the former bedwetter or whatever. I know I've told this story before about a church that we went to when I was married to my first husband. Our family went to this church, and when we first started going there were, these women in the church that, wanted to, make sure we got off to a good start. So they were letting us know who everybody was. That's Susie. She was a prostitute for years. Yeah. And that's Willie over there. He was her pimp. And that's, Leo. He was, a drug addict on the street. And that is Renee, she ran off with the pastor of a church. And, all these things that they'd done in their past, most of it before they ever even knew the Lord. And they were things that they repented of, that they had changed in their lives, and they were no longer that person. But yet these women kept it alive by making sure you knew who they used to be. And that's how they defined who they were. And that bothered me. I was like, thank goodness they're just meeting me, so they don't know my past to say, oh, that's Angie. She sucked her thumb till she was 9. Or something even worse that I had done in my life, because we have all sinned. We have all fallen short of the glory of God. We all have a past. We all have a closet of shame. I don't care how perfect and wonderful you may seem. I know you got it too. So we don't want to be defined by that. And yet, through unforgiveness, we hold ourselves and others hostage to these past things. So tonight, I'm just wanting to share this with you and wanting you to think about this, okay? Because if you're holding yourself hostage to something from your past that you've repented of, I no longer suck my thumb, so I've repented of it. If you are still carrying that false sense of guilt around, I knew a man, a really wonderful man years ago, and as wonderful as he was, he did some things that weren't so wonderful. And he hated himself for what he did. And he decided that he should not forgive himself. Because he thought, well, if he forgave himself, then he would go out and do it again. But if he didn't forgive himself, and if he kept badgering at himself about what he'd done, well, that would stop him from doing that thing ever again. Only it didn't stop him. He did it again. He got caught again. And he hated himself even more. Now, I was talking to him years after the fact. And I was like, you've got to forgive yourself and let that go, because that's not who you are. It may be what you did back then, but that's not what you're doing now. That's not who you are now. And you need to let it go. And he was like, no, I can't, because if I let it go, I know, that it'll come up in me again, and I'll do it again. And let me tell you, the truth of what all of that did, of holding himself hostage to his past, was eventually it was more than he could bear. And he ended up taking his life because he felt no hope anymore. I don't know if he did it again and that's what triggered it, or what. I don't know why. I know he dealt with problems of wanting to take his life. I know he struggled with that. But what actually put him over the edge when he finally did, I'm not sure, other than he was holding on to all this stuff. Now, if he did go ahead and do something, maybe that was, rather than face it again, that was his answer to the problem. It's not the answer. But to me, I never saw any good come out of him holding himself hostage to his past. So if you're holding yourself hostage to your past, forgive yourself. God forgave you. Now you forgive you. And let it go. And don't define yourself. You see, the more he hung on to that, he kept defining himself by his past sin. And he couldn't move beyond it. Now, if you're still living in sin, and then you need to repent, because all the good that ever came before it doesn't count in your favor now, because it's who you are in this moment and where you stand with the Lord in this moment. The character that you have right now, that's what defines you. I don't have to walk around being, oh, I'm a divorcee. That was a long time ago. Yes, I was divorced, and it was awful, and I don't recommend that either. But that wasn't my idea to get divorced, okay? But it ended up being what had to be. But I'm married now to a wonderful man. I'm a married woman. I'm not a divorced woman. See what I'm saying? I used to be a lot fatter than I am. I'm not that morbidly obese woman anymore. Still chunky. Definitely chunky. But I'm not what I used to be. This is who I am now. I'm not 20 years old and some hot little chick. I'm an old woman. That's who I am. But there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we need to know who we are now. And if there is something wrong in our lives now, we need to take care of that. If there's stuff from the past that we never dealt with and we haven't repented and it's still a part of us, we need to take care of that. Okay? And only we can make those choices. And with God's help, only with Him can we be set free. Nobody else can do it for us. So, in the same vein, though, if I'm holding someone else hostage because of something they did, either to me or I heard about it or whatever, I gotta let that go too and set them free. So tonight, I guess I'm just thinking about getting free and not holding myself or anybody else hostage to something that isn't even valid anymore. Okay, those are my thoughts in the middle of the night. I love you guys. I thank you guys so much for watching these videos. For those of you that share the videos, thank you. Those of you that hit the like button, that helps get the video out for more people to see. Those of you that leave comments, thank you. All those things help this little ministry grow. So you're a part of it and helping this happen. I've asked the Lord to, take these videos around the world, touching people's lives, just a simple, ordinary old woman. Because we don't have to be somebody really special or somebody really famous. There is a ministry in you. There is a story in you, and there's power in your story. And you are the only one that can share your story. You are the only one that can fulfill your ministry. It's in there, no matter how insignificant you feel. I'm telling you, there is a purpose for your life. And God has placed a ministry in you. Even if it's just smiling at people at the grocery store and asking them what Jesus means to them. That was my dad's ministry in his last years with Alzheimer's and everything else. And he was like a little boy. He was not the man he used to be. But God was not done with him. Even when he didn't know where he was or what his name was, he knew who Jesus was. And he always would say something to somebody and ask him, who does Jesus to you? What does Jesus mean to you? In fact, the very last person that he got to speak to outside of our home, outside of Marvin and I, was the little gal who did I can't think of it, where they measure your heartbeats and stuff. Yeah, put it down. You know what I'm trying to say. Put it in the comments so that I will remember what it is that I can't think of when I'm too tired in the middle of the night. Anyway, he had gone in for that, and he didn't want to do it, but then he thought, well, it's not going to hurt anything. So we went to do that. That was on Monday, and he shared that the little girl that was doing it kept having problems with the machine, and she had to keep going to get another one and hook him back up and trying to run the strips, and finally got a good one. And she asked him if he had any questions, or was there anything else she could do for him before she was going to let us go home. And he said, I just have one question for you. I'm wondering what you think of Jesus. And she turned and looked at him like, I don't know. I haven't really given it much thought. But the way you're asking me, I think I better think about it. And he said, oh, you better. It's the most important thing you can think about. And it was something so different about that time when he said something to her. And because, he couldn't figure out why he was still here, because he thought he should have already gone home to heaven, okay? And because my mom had gone, and they were supposed to, in his mind, they were supposed to go together, and he didn't understand why Jesus was leaving him here still. And I was like, Dad, because you still have somebody to share with. And so when we stepped out into the hall after saying goodbye to her, there just was something so different about it. And he said, do you think that she'll think about him? And I said, Dad, I think she's going to give it a great deal of thought, because that was just very different. What if that was your last assignment, Dad? What if that was the one? He goes, well, then I get to go home. And I go, yep, then you get to go home. And he did. Sunday morning, he went home to be with Jesus. Had no idea that was going to happen. See, it still gets to me. I had awesome parents, and I don't know if I'm ever going to not miss them, no matter how old I get. Oh, I miss them both so much, and I'm so grateful to the Lord for giving them to me as parents, because that was the one good thing in my childhood, was my mom and dad and my grandma. Yeah. So anyway, that was what I wanted to share with you tonight. I want you to know that you have a purpose, and I have a purpose. And when you do the different little things on YouTube that you do, hitting the thumbs up and sharing and commenting and subscribing and all of that, it helps move me up in the algorithms, whatever those are. It just means more people, what I've come to understand, more people get to see my videos. And ever so often, one of my silly stories or one of my ideas or just rants or whatever, it touches somebody. And it encourages them, or it gets them thinking, I need Jesus like you've got Jesus, Angie. Man, I tell you, nothing makes me happier. That's what I want. So thank you for everything you have done to help make this happen. Thank you. Those of you that have sent me little blessings and notes and words of encouragement, and thank you. You have no idea how much I appreciate you, or how much you help make a difference. So, little thank you on this one too. All right, I'm gonna let you go. We need to get some sleep. All right, I love you guys. Talk to you again real soon.